we're going to take a look at these two filters. They're both the Napa Gold filter. The one on the right is by Mann+Hummel. The one on the left is PGI. We're going to cut them open and we're going to take a look at the components. And this fits my Honda CR-V. So before we go to cutting them open, I called Wix customer service. I initially spoke to a Margie. She said if it has the Wix stamp on it, it is Wix. Said the majority of them are made in the USA. Further, she said they do get finished goods and distribute them versus constructing them within one of their facilities. So they can get them in from other countries and distribute them, or they'll do them in their own facilities here. As of October 2024, the Napa Gold line moved to other filter provider companies. Then Margie had me speak to an Angie second for some more in-depth information. So Angie said Napa went to a multi-supplier chain where Wix is no longer Napa's primary or only supplier of filters. The Napa brand has multiple companies making their filters. Wix is still doing Wix brand filters. If you are buying Napa filters, you need to make sure the box and filter show manufactured by Mann+Hummel. Those are Wix made. And here's an example where it says Mann+Hummel and made in the USA. That's going to be the one in the box here on the right. Here we see an example of the one from PGI, which is made in Vietnam, which is the box on the left. Now, Angie did say that the Wix brand can be made anywhere in the world, and she said that the country of manufacture will always be shown on the filter. Now, another question that I asked Angie, as far as the internal components that are done by Wix brand filters, are all the internal components the same? She said that all internal components would be the same no matter the country of manufacture for a Wix brand filter. She did say, depending on which factory it's made at, the bypass valve setting could be held in with a coil spring that you see here, or with a leaf spring that you see here. And she said that is true of their entire brand of Wix filters, no matter the country of manufacture. Now, as far as boxing, you can see that the Mann+Hummel is a little taller, and it's also a little wider. So let's cut these open. Here you see the PGI filter, the Premium Guard Incorporated. And then over here you see the Mann+Hummel brand, which bought Wix. And they are both labeled Napa Gold filters. And this particular one, the 7356, that fits my Honda CR-V. Let's get these out of the box. So in doing these, the PGI will be on the left, the Mann+Hummel will be on the right. Now right from the get-go you can see that the PGI is not as tall as the Mann+Hummel. Then let's take a look at how they're shipped. Here the PGI has a cellophane cover on it, and the Mann+Hummel doesn't. Here you see the PGI is made in Vietnam, whereas the Mann+Hummel is made in the United States. Now, even though they both are for the same vehicle, 7356, you can see that the UPC numbers are different. PGI, Mann+Hummel. Something else that's extremely apparent when you just pull it out of the box is these scallops on the Mann+Hummel are much longer and more prominent than the scallops in the PGI, which is where you would put your oil filler cap to take it off. So let's take a look at those. Now this is when I'm using the oil filter wrench like this. This is the one. So let's first take a look at the Mann+Hummel. You can see how far down it goes, right to the bottom where that line is there of the scallops per se, a little bit further. And it is a little bit not snug. Now let's look at the PGI. And that fits on there snug, but it doesn't go all the way down. You can see it tips. So I much rather have the feel that's on the Mann+Hummel, because here it's not going down all the way. But it doesn't. It feels snugger rotationally, but it doesn't go down like it should. Where this sits right on it, nice. So let me remove this cellophane, if I can. Well, hang on a second, I might need to use the scissors here to cut that back. There we go. So that is kind of a nice feature that even though it's boxed, it does come with a cellophane cover, which is on there very nicely. It's on there snug. Another thing to make note of, guys, is you'll see the Mann+Hummel on the right states it. There's nothing on the PGI on the right that states it is a PGI. There's no indication other than it was made in Vietnam. Alright, so we're going to cut these filters open. This is my filter cutter from Long Acre Racing. Did a review of this back when I bought it, and I also showed what I put this on, the reason for that. Alright, so much for trying to be neat. What I did is I put blue paint, marker paint, on the Mann+Hummel and up in here, so when we cut this off we'll know what pieces went with the Mann+Hummel. And well, I put some marks here, and I thought it was drier than what it was, and but anyways, so we've got the blue, the Mann+Hummel, and we're just going to keep the PGI without any paint on it. Let's do the Mann+Hummel first. Too tight. So as we do this, let's mark all the parts with the blue paint. Obviously this already has the blue paint on it. And then obviously this already had the blue paint on it. Alright, next we're going to do the PGI, and we'll save a little bit of time. We're not going to show the whole process here of me cutting it open. You saw the other one. And the last part of it here should be coming open here any second. Quite a bit of difference here. Okay, and again, blue is on the Mann+Hummel, and there's nothing, no painted parts here. So, very interesting. Well, we'll start taking a look at this. Let's take a look at the case. PGI case, Mann+Hummel. And you can see how deep those scallops go into the case down at the bottom. And here, I don't know if the camera picks it up, but you can't see them. They're very light. So what's amazing is in machining, you can have a part made anywhere in the world, bring it to the United States, and if it follows the geometrical dimensioning and tolerancing standards, it'll fit on anything else that has the same. But yet, these are supposed to be to the Napa gold standard, and yet, I guess the difference in just the case alone, you'd think they'd try to make them the same, and then we see with the rest of it how much different it is. So, quite interesting. Again, PGI is Vietnam, USA for the Mann+Hummel. So while we're at the cases, I'm going to use my spherical anvil mics, Mitsatoya's here, to gauge the thickness of each one and see what the wall thicknesses are in those. And again, this is a spherical, it's got a spherical face. You'll notice that instead of being flat like this, it's rounded. That allows you to get curved surfaces. So with the curved surface will hit on that sphere, and I'll be able to get an accurate reading of the thickness. Here you get a really good idea what I'm talking about. So when you go into the curved surface, you're just hitting at one infinitesimal point, and you get a good accurate reading. And here you see how on the curved surface the ball anvil will only hit at one exact point, and then we take our measurement out here, it's not going to matter. So I just show this in case somebody's not aware of how these operate. There's a good, you can see really clearly there how it's sitting on one precise point. You couldn't use a flat anvil. It wouldn't give a good reading. It'd be hitting on the outer edges depending on, and it'd be off by the amount, whatever that diameter is. It's only going to hit on the edges of the spindle if it was like that. So I'm getting 14 thousandths and 2 tenths. Now in the PGI, I'm getting 15 thousandths and 9/10. Next, we'll look at the anti-drain back valve, which you notice when I took this apart, it had a lot of that little black stuff. I don't know what that was on it. I've actually wiped, excuse me, I've actually wiped quite a bit off. So that went on there like that. Pretty simple. And then the PGI, you'll note quite a bit different. Next, we'll look at the case assemblies, and obviously they've got to have the same thread pitch diameter to screw on, so when you screw it onto your car. Now, one thing that's interesting is there on the PGI here on the left, there are more threads. You've got a deeper set of threads than you do on the Mann+Hummel. Quite interesting. And again, I marked the Mann+Hummels in blue. So here and here, look at the extra amount of thread that you get. Quite interesting. Didn't really anticipate that. Now this is looking on the inside, your Mann+Hummels on the right, PGI on the left. You can see those holes that they have for oil passage. And they have the same amount. Now taking a look at the gasket that goes up against your engine block, you can see that the Mann+Hummel here has your more customary, what I've always seen when I've used filters, is your flat gasket, whatever material they make them out of, that's flat. Here in the PGI, you can clearly see that it's more of a round. It's rounded, it's not flat. So it'll actually hit on less surface area. There you can see it better. So again, I don't know enough if that is that, you know, I'm sure it's going to seal, but again, as I said earlier, if they're having the same standard, why so much difference? Now, one thought to difference could be that PGI uses that type of a seal, whereas Mann+Hummel uses that, and as long as everything else, flow rate, the microns of the filter, everything else is the same, they probably don't worry too much about this. That's what I'm going to assume, because both are going to seal, and PGI has their way of doing it, Mann+Hummel has their way of doing it, and as long as flow rates and everything else, then they should be good. So let's see what these end caps weigh, because when you're cutting them on that cutter, it's going to be the same relative distance from the gasket to where the cutting wheel hits. And I've got a ruler here so that when I set this down, it's the same distance, if it matters, from on the scale. This is the Mann+Hummel, 47.4 grams. PGI, 51.5 grams. Now here's where we see some differences, really. In the spring, here they're using, this is the PGI, is using an actual spring. Here they're using this plate which acts as a spring. And that's on the Mann+Hummel. Alright, Mann+Hummel, PGI. Here's where we really start seeing stuff. PGI has this relief valve, or the bypass valve I mean here, in case the filter would get so clogged. And you can see I can push this down with a big pen. You can see how that goes down, so that if it wouldn't oil, you at least get flow through your engine. Now here, from what I can see, they call this like an RV spring, and that's to allow the piston to open the flow of the oil through the filter during cold weather startup conditions. So totally different. I mean, you know, again, do I go back to, well, that's how PGI makes their filters, and Napa says that's acceptable? So again, anybody knows which one of these setups is actually better. Now let's look at the inside of them. Again, a marked difference. You can see where the oil will be going through the hose. PGI, Mann+Hummel. Considerably different construction. The other thing too is, obviously we saw that before I cut open the case, the difference in height of the filter itself. The actual filter media, which is obvious because if the whole thing is a little bit shorter, then that has to be shorter too. You can't have the same amount. Next I'm going to count the pleats, and as always, Mann+Hummel's on the right, PGI's on the left, and you can see that they both have a metal sleeve that connects the filter media together. And I have no idea the spec, the difference. Obviously the different color. Is it a different type of material? Just a different color? Is it the same thing, different color? That I don't know. So let me go ahead and count the pleats, and we'll go from there. So I counted them several times. I started at the first pleat, and then when I came back around, then I count the metal piece. So I've got 48 on the PGI and 50 on the Mann+Hummel. So guys, that's what we've got. If there's any experts out there that know the ins and outs of this stuff, what they feel is better, please let me know. Or does it really matter? In the scheme of things,